the whole night I was wishing so badly that you could have seen it like with your eyes, because it was a dream. It was an absolute dream.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? Portable Trevor here, and today we have a very special guest. This is a really close friend of mine. Please welcome my buddy Nate Powers. What's going on, man?
Hey, I'm here on Portable Trevor's show.
Yeah! You are here, dude. Thank you. Thank you for coming on, man. What have you been up to lately?
Yeah, man. You know what? It's been kind of crazy because a lot of people are just totally shut down right now.
Mm-hmm.
But as a cinematographer, a lot of organizations have needed media and needed to figure out how to go digital, which has sort of meant me being almost the busiest I've ever been. So,
Really?
yeah, so I've been working a lot, but it's been good.
Yeah.
I'm thankful for the work because I know people who are, kind of in struggle mode right now because a lot of their work is like slowed down or completely stopped. So I'm very, very grateful to be doing what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. And I think what helps you is you have a really niche kind of market for your filmmaking. You're not just doing random videos. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Are you just talking about like the stuff I do with churches?
Yeah, because you like do update videos and you just kind of help out the churches in
Yeah.
general.
So I'm a pastor's kid my whole life,
Mm-hmm.
and I've seen like firsthand how challenging it can be for a lot of churches to have media and like cutting edge technology. So I kind of decided last year, as I was transitioning into full time self employment as a cinematographer, I wanted to provide some way for churches to have easy access to technology. So I started a business last year doing basically media resources for churches, and I've been serving churches like up and down the East Coast, three different states I'm working with, churches in three different states I'm working with right now, and it's going really well. And they're all super busy right now because they're having to go fully digital because a lot of them are shut down and not having like physical services. So every week I'm either filming or editing uh, several church services that are getting put online. So it's been good, man. I'm staying busy.
Nice. And how do they contact you to do this?
Just email Nate at natepowers.tv. I get people emailing me all the time asking me for prices and how stuff works and all that. So it's kind of, for me, it's kind of been a way for me to be able to do the stuff that I really care about and really passionate about. Because it's a business that allows me to provide a solution to a lot of different churches, and it sort of is a package like subscription kind of business. And so it's given me an opportunity to be like, okay, so this part of the week is when I'm operating this business, and then the rest of the week is when I actually get to do the other like personal stuff that really fuels me creatively. So it's been a wild ride for the last year.
Dude, that's awesome. And what are some things
Yeah,
that kind
man.
of fuel your fire? Because I don't imagine, church update videos are the most exciting thing in the world, but
No,
I
they're
know you love
not.
doing it, but I know you're happy to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, what kind of like fuels your fire? What kind of like gets you the motivation to wake up in the morning?
Well, for me, I'm very much a storyteller, so
Mm-hmm.
I always gravitate towards, you know, uh, really creative expression kind of projects. I recently produced a feature length documentary called Death to Life. I work with a lot of music artists doing music videos, and that is one thing that I'm like, that's so like in my element, doing music videos. I love it, and if I could like make a full living doing only that for the rest of my life, I think I would be totally cool with it. But I'm the kind of person that likes to do a lot of different things. So when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to just telling stories, that's really the kind of stuff that I gravitate toward.
Yeah, and I definitely want to jump into Death to Life in a little bit, but first I kind of want to talk about your history with filmmaking. So, What
Yeah,
got you into filmmaking? Like, what do you remember the very first time you were like, I want to do that. I want to try that.
I do. I do. It's actually it's funny because I have a lot of friends who work in this industry also, and a lot of times what happens is like, well, not any industry, a lot of people will kind of figure out what they want to do with their life when they're, in their 20s or something like that. For me, at I think it was like 10 years old, me and my best friend stole my parents' video camera, and we made like I think we were like trying to mimic like what the show like Jackass does, and we were just trying to do like really stupid stuff, and it was really dumb. I think I have the tape somewhere, and it's just so stupid. But we broke the camera at the end of the day. I got in huge trouble. But it like sparked this thing in me at 10 years old where I was like, I want to make movies. Like that's what I want to do. So from 10 years old on, I was like, all of our like DVDs and stuff, we would get DVDs for movies that I liked, and they would have the special features with like the behind the scenes of like how it was made, and they would show like on set footage and stuff. And I was obsessed with like sometimes I would, before I even watched the movie, I would pull up special features and just watch the making of before I even watched the movie. And I was just like obsessed with the craft at a super young age, and got my first camera and editing system at like 12 or 13, and just taught myself everything I could. And I was shooting on like VHS tapes, if that tells you anything. Um, and so I just taught myself everything I could. And then at 16 years old, when I got my driver's license, I got my first like paid gig to do a video for a church. And started working with other churches, and then started working with some businesses, and then I went to college, made a lot more connections, and it just sort of snowballed into this thing where this is just what I do now. It's just a huge part of my life, and it all just has stemmed from that moment as a 10-year-old kid where I just like was fascinated with telling a visual story, even if it was a really dumb visual story.
Dude, that's awesome. So, do you
Yeah.
remember some of the behind the scenes that you would watch that you were really inspired by?
Yeah, like the Mission Impossible movies. Specifically, I think Mission Impossible 3 was one of the ones where it was J.J. Abrams directed that one, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And I, as a kid, or as a teen, I don't know, I don't remember what year Mission Impossible 3 came out, but I just remember being obsessed with the special features on that. And I decided like J.J. Abrams was like the dude. And I was like, I want to be the next J.J. Abrams. And so uh, recent or soon after that, I needed glasses, and I wanted like thick rimmed like square glasses because that's what J.J. Abrams wore.
That's so
And
awesome.
my parents were like, well, do you think people make fun of you because it's like because they come from the day where like thick rimmed black glasses were like nerdy, and I'm like, no, this is what I want. Even if it looks nerdy, this is what I want because I want to look like a filmmaker.
That's so awesome. And that's kind of become your
Yeah.
style. Like, ever since I've met you, you've worn those glasses.
Yeah, I could totally have contacts, but I this is just what I want to look like. I'm comfortable with them.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen you without glasses. Oh, God. No!
Now you have. Now the world has seen me.
Oh, Lord. But,
My
dude,
naked face.
um, so you were inspired by like J.J. Abrams, did you? And Jackass. That's a very weird combination of things to be
It is
inspired by.
super weird. It is super weird. But you know what's cool too is like I had I will say I don't think that I would be where I was if I didn't have like an incredible support system of friends and mentors, because first of all, my parents, when they, even though they were mad the first time I did this and like kind of busted the camera, um I think they noticed that there was like a passion there, and I was talking about it a lot. And so when I got my first camera and actually started making stuff, I think it was maybe my mom was the first one who kind of mentioned, she was like, you could probably like make money, like make a living doing this for like businesses and churches and stuff. And I was like, really? Like that's a dream. I want to do that forever. And they connected me with a guy named Stewart, who is just such a great guy. He was a mentor of mine at a very young age. They introduced me to him. He was a professional videographer that did church work, and they connected me with him. I think he was maybe like in his late 20s or something like that, and I was like 12 years old. And so I asked him, I was like, can I just like shadow you for a day? And so he did a video for our church, and so I just like spent the day with him, and he was showing me a lot of stuff. And then he produced this show at this Church of God youth camp that a bunch of my like lifelong friends grew up at. He produced this show called Livewire TV, and it was basically like every day we would do they would do like a 15 to 20 minute show that they shot and edited with like comedy segments and like a question of the day segment and all this stuff. So every year at youth camp, Darren would kind of let me be a part of what they were doing, and I learned so much because him and the two other guys that were doing it, three other guys actually, were all professional videographers and people who were pursuing like filmmaking. So I was learning from them at like 13 or 14 years old. And it got to the point where I was like kind of getting out of the age of being a camper, and I was able to be like a staff worker at the camp. And so I joined the video team, and me and my best friend Josh English, who is actually here right now, if he wants to peek in.
It's Josh.
Me and Josh.
Oh my
Me
gosh,
and Josh
Josh.
my gosh, Josh. So me and Josh grew up together in Ohio, and so we kind of got into the Livewire crew at the same time. And it was me, him, and our other friend Matt Knoll, and we ended up like taking over the show to where we were doing it every year, and like took it to like a new bar of like excellence. I don't want to say what was being done before was not good, but I feel like we just like took it so seriously that we were like, oh man, this is like, I want to make this the best year ever, like every year. And that was just like a huge part of our lives every summer. Like we would spend, even when I didn't live in Ohio anymore, I would go up to Ohio and I would stay at Matt's house for like a month before youth camp, and we would write sketches, we would write like song parodies to do music videos too. We would just like spend so much time in the creative process and plan everything. And what?
Can I interject here?
Yeah, go
Sorry.
ahead.
So, hi, Trevor.
This is an amazing image.
One of the things that like me, Nate, and our friend Matt, and like some other people that had joined along in the process, but we were legitimately passionate about like making it our own because we grew up watching these guys who did it for a long time on their own. Like we were inspired by them.
Yeah.
And we could like, as they were growing up, they were like starting to do other jobs or like whatever. So they kind of lost like that, like zeal for it. And, but we had learned so much from them, like how it's supposed to look. Like the bits are supposed to go a certain way. They have a certain cadence and stuff like that. And we just like ran with it, and let alone the technology that came along with our upbringing. Like it was exponentially better, but we did learn a lot from those guys.
Yeah.
But we were able to change, like the changing of technology and all that, and how we were connecting with the campers just made it so much better.
Yeah. And I say all that to say that like I would not be where I am today as a filmmaker if it wasn't for those days as a teenager, and like guys who just like saw that I had a real like deep passion for filmmaking and didn't even really know what it was yet, and they like took me under their wing and just like let me learn and let me try things and let me fail. Like they let me bring my old computer and my old camera to youth camp, and we made like initially some probably really rough, like from a technical standpoint probably was not good, some of the stuff that we made, but like they just let me do it because it was a learning experience for me. And even if it was bad, like we would make it, and then at the end of the day it would show to like hundreds of kids, and we got to see like our work shown on a big screen at the end of the day. And it gave me a taste for what filmmaking is, that we can create something from scratch that came from here and get like immediate feedback when we put it on this big screen and people respond to it emotionally. And it we were exposed to that whole process of filmmaking, so it was super super valuable for me.
That's cool. Do you think, for filmmakers that are starting out, do you think every filmmaker should have an opportunity like that, to have a playground where they can experiment and not be like super judged, but also be able to grow in that process?
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody's like introduction to the craft is different.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but hold on, let me make sure. Am I still here?
Yeah, you're still there.
Okay, cool. So my display on my camera turned off, so I was like, "Oh no."
Oh no.
Uh, I think everybody's introduction to the craft is different,
Mm-hmm.
but if you can, when you really, and you know this, Trevor, because you're kind of in that world right now where you're getting to just like make things for the art and
Mm-hmm.
for the value of the craft. Um, I think that it's important to find that somehow in some way. And it's probably all going to look different from person to person, but I do think it's really important to find a community, even if it's a digital community and not like physical people around you, but just find people who are like-minded and just make things for fun with no like agenda of like this is going to go here and this is going to accomplish this. Just have something in your head, I want to make this. And the more you do that, the better you get at it, the more people notice, and then it snowballs. It tends to snowball for everybody I've ever known who works in that industry. They just made stuff and it snowballed and it created something that was bigger than themselves.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's also important to find a niche because with you, it's been church ape day videos and narrative storytelling. And for me, whenever I moved here to Atlanta, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And then I took a step back and I realized I love nostalgia. Like I love things that made me happy when I was a kid. So I like wanted to
Yeah.
emulate that in my art. So that's why, like, heck, right now on the live stream, you guys see the the 80s vaporwave stuff. Like that stuff just
Right.
brings me joy, and I feel like, and I see it make a connection with people. And
Definitely.
when when I moved here, it was like a roller coaster. Like it was really scary going up, but once I like went down and settled in, it really wasn't that bad. And I'm sure you experienced the
Yeah.
same thing. Like you've taken many chances, you've moved many times in your life too, and but once you've kind of settled, it seems like you found your place and like what you want to
Yeah.
do.
And I think for me too, it was like learning as a teenager and doing a lot of gigs. It like
Mm-hmm.
hardwired my brain for kind of an entrepreneurial path for me personally, which not everybody has that same path, but that's how it looked for me. And I initially kind of detracted from that after I went to college. I was thinking, you know, I have to get a salaried job because that's just what adults do.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a I got an 8 to 5 salary job and I got really depressed and I gained a bunch of weight and then I got fired after a year. Uh, and I consider myself a very hard worker, but I know I was not investing into that job what they needed because it was so like not what I needed to do. And it was like a wake up call for me when I got fired that like uh, I need to be doing what I've always been doing, what my brain is hardwired to do, which is just to not have an office routine answering to one person. I need to tell all kinds of stories. And
Mm-hmm.
so I've over the years built this clientele of businesses and churches and just people in general who have interesting stories to tell. And I just that's what I do and I love it. I wouldn't be doing anything else. I've been full time, like officially full time self employed for a full year now. Um, I've been mostly self employed for like 4 years, but I made the final jump last year, and it's the best decision I've ever made. It's hard and it's really scary, And if you're not like, if you know you're not like called to do it, don't do it, because I would not recommend it to people who just are like, oh yeah, I just want to do this and try it, because it's hard. But for me, this is the best decision I've ever made.
Dude, that's awesome. What advice would you give to
Yeah.
people that are in those 9 to 5 jobs and they have this burning passion for filmmaking or really anything that just isn't what they're doing at the moment? What would you tell those people that are
Yeah.
saying like, "Hey, I'm stuck and there's really nothing I can do"?
Yeah, I would say, it's like a tightrope that you kind of have to walk, because on one hand you have to survive and support yourself, but on the other hand you can't deny the gifts that have been put inside you. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we all have like dreams and gifts and things that are instilled in us, like in our DNA. And I feel like those are there for a reason. I'm a person of faith, and I believe that those things are instilled in us to serve a bigger calling. And so I always tell people, I'm like, if you have this dream, it's there for a reason. Figure out that reason. And for some people, that develops into, leaving a 9 to 5 and building a business. For some people, it evolves into, kind of doing it as a hobby until it eventually grows into something bigger. I think for everybody it's different, but if you're in a 9 to 5 and you know that it's not what you need to be doing, and you like hate your life, then I'm not going to say quit your job, because that's really probably bad advice. But plan, like make plans and make dreams and have a goal, like have a 6 month goal, and then follow that with a 1 year goal, follow that with a 3 year goal, and have those goals in mind and just chase after them. And if that means in 6 months I want to leave my 9 to plan with like literally writing it out. I have a whiteboard in my office that I write goals and plans on all the time. And I take that goal, that big goal, and then I divide it into little goals. What has to happen? What 10 things have to happen for me to get to the one?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so that's what I would say, man. If you're in that place, like, make plans.
I
I'm
remember
not gonna say
for
just make an impulse decision, but
Yeah, totally. And I remember when I was making the decision to move here to Atlanta, I remember I talked to you and I
yep,
talked to some friends, and you remember how scared I was. And I,
I do.
I remember I finally made that decision. And when I moved here, it was not easy. I did not make it to where I am today, but I was here and I didn't get any work for like 4 months. And I was getting like
Yeah,
little gigs, but I wasn't getting anything consistent. And I remember telling myself like, if I don't get anything by next month, I'm gonna apply at Starbucks. And like I feel
wow,
like God has like blessed me with this, but whenever I said that, it was like the next day I got like work and everything. So it's just like really
that's
weird
awesome.
how things fall into place. Like hard work is definitely a part of it and the community that I'm in. But for you, like, what do you think? Have you ever found yourself in that situation where you're like, man, this sucks. Like I can't believe I'm here, and
Yeah,
then just something falls into place.
like in a bad place where you like don't know what to do.
Oh, like you're in a bad place maybe, and you're like, I don't know what I'm gonna do next month for money or rent, and then
Yeah,
just something falls in your lap, and you're like, oh shoot, this is awesome.
dude, that happens all the time. I mean, and I know if there's anybody that's watching this that is self-employed, uh, especially in the creative industry,
Hmm.
it is such a roller coaster. And I don't like, right now sitting here, I'm doing very well, but I don't know what the next 3 months looks like. And that's why I'm always making goals and always making plans. It's a hustle. And I'm kind of in the process of, part of the purpose of starting that business working with churches is because I want to build it into something that is sustainable and consistent, to where I don't have to have those roller coaster moments anymore, and where I don't have those lows where I'm just like, I don't know what to do. I'm trying to sort of get out of that hustle of daily trying to make the next thing happen. Um, but it's a process, and I'm in that goal planning stage right now where I'm just kind of doing the 10 things that lead to the next thing. So it's important. And another thing too is like, I don't mean to make this like a super faith centered discussion,
No, that's
but
fine.
I do want to say one thing. I'm reading this book called Acres of Diamonds by Jensen Franklin. And one of the quotes in that book, it's really simple, but it's very profound to me. It says, God is always faithful. He will never leave you breadless in the place he has called you to. And I've found that true in the, 7 to 8 years that I've been doing filmmaking professionally, that even in those moments where I'm at the bottom of the valley of the roller coaster and I'm like, I don't know what's next, those things always happen where something is provided to me or something happens that leads to the next thing. And I've never been breadless, and I know that I'm walking in the call that God has for me, and I've never been breadless in that walk. So it's been really great for me.
Hmm. And even when I've been in my lowest low, and for those of you like tuning in or watching, me and Nate are very much men of faith. Like we're both Christians, and we grew up in Christian households. Nate's a pastor's kid, and
Mm-hmm.
like I grew up in church as well, and I think I've never been at just such a low place in my life where I've been like homeless. Like those things are terrible, but even in my lowest low,
Yeah,
I've always like had my needs met, and that's always like meant so much to me, and I really attribute that to God for the most part.
for
And
sure.
yeah, totally. So to move on a little bit, so I would definitely want to talk about death to life.
Yeah.
Um, me and Nate went to Ohio. It was the most random phone call I think I've ever gotten in my life. Nate calls me and he tells me like, "Hey man, I want you to take this road trip with me to Ohio, and we're gonna film this documentary about the opioid crisis in this country." So
Yep.
I'm gonna hand it over to Nate to talk about this beautiful documentary.
Yeah. So basically, I have this buddy. His name is Marcus McFalling, and he has one of the most incredible stories of anybody I've ever met.
It's absolutely
He,
incredible.
yeah, I've known him for several years through his wife because his wife and I grew up together in the youth camp world in Ohio. And Marcus was had a 2-year contract to play professional football and went out to San Antonio and started his career as a professional football player. And before his first season started, he had a career-ending shoulder injury that uh, shut it all down, like basically destroyed his dream, and ended up having to have like reconstructive surgery on his shoulder, and that led to addiction to the medications that he was on, and it led him down a really destructive path of drug addiction that lasted for a few years. And so him and I have been very good friends. Uh, he, I don't want to give too much away about like his future after the addiction, but
Mm,
he's recovered from his addiction. I'll say that. And uh, him and I have had this dream of making something together where we can tell his story.
mm,
And he reached out to me and was just like, let's make this happen. And we started planning. And so I had planned this trip up for a weekend to make promotional material for his nonprofit. Um, and I had this idea. I was like, I want to make a documentary that is about addiction in general, not necessarily even just Marcus's addiction, but just the whole subject. And so it was a super impulse, and I knew that I couldn't do it alone. And so I called Trevor up and I was like, "Hey, dude, I'm going on a trip." I think it was like just a few days away that I was
mm.
going,
Yeah, you gave me a very
and I
short
was
notice.
like, "Yeah," I was like, "I'm going to Ohio in a few days, and I'm just gonna." I was like, "I have no idea what this is gonna look like, but I want you to come with me and just make something with me." And I was like, "I need to know like yesterday if you want to come." And luckily you were able to work it out, and we made the trip up, and the entire production of this film was so impulse. which is kind of another like thing that I try to follow and try to tell people. I'm like, if you have an idea, even if it's not fully like ready, like if you're ready personally to do it, just do it. And that was for me, like I just wanted to do this, and so we just did it. So we went to Ohio and we interviewed Marcus and his wife, and I remembered a friend of mine, Kirsty, who I went to high school with, who had also dealt with drug addiction, and I didn't even know if she was like still in addiction or not. I didn't really know. And so I just reached out to her and I was like, "Hey, I'm making this film. Was wondering if you'd be interested in telling your story." That's like all I said. She was like, "Yeah, I would love to." And so the next day we went to my hometown and interviewed her. And then we were at my home church and the pastor was there and I was like, "I want to interview the pastor too because he's seeing this opioid epidemic in Ohio every day." And so, long story short, it just evolved into a feature length film, and we called it Death to Life. And it was finished in January, and it's now in consideration for 32 film festivals all over the country and all over the world. Actually, there's a couple of Canadian festivals and a UK festival that it's being considered for. And we've been accepted to one. We've only had one notification date because it's like early in the season. And that one was an acceptance and a notification that we're in consideration for awards for that festival.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a promising journey. I'm kind of excited to see where it goes with the other 31 festivals that we're being considered for, but it's really exciting.
And I think that's so dope. And I never thought anything that I worked on would be in a film festival. So that's just such a
Dude, come
cool
on,
opportunity.
man.
Well, maybe not for a while. Still wanted to
Yeah,
improve, but yeah, I'd love to talk about. I'll never forget that day interviewing and hanging out with Marcus. Like, Marcus
yeah,
was one of the most interesting human beings I've ever met. Like, he's so full of life and energy, and
yep,
just as soon as like I like shook his hand and we met, like he just like wanted to know about me. He's like, "Hey man, I can tell this about you. Are you okay with this?" Or um, he just like
yeah.
wanted to talk to me and be a person. Like, that's what I loved about him. And
I love
we
it.
went to we went to these schools where he did these motivational speeches, and those like really like touched my heart, honestly, because just watching him, he was talking to these kids, but I was like, I think he's talking to us too. Like, he's not just talking to,
Yeah,
like, he wasn't like being like, all right kids, this is what you do. He wasn't getting down on like one knee to talk to everybody. He was talking to everybody as equals, like, and he was like, listen, I've been to the lowest low. I know what that's like, but you need to know what happens and what to do when adversity hits. And Nate,
yeah.
what was your reaction when you saw those when we were filming it?
When I saw those moments with the kids,
Or just, yeah, that in general, and just him like, at the assemblies at all the high schools.
yeah, well, you can just tell that he's like in his element, that he's doing what he is called to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of funny how, like, even when our dreams get shattered, like a new path kind of forges itself. And that was his case. Like he had this crazy future ahead of him as a professional football player, and that all got destroyed in a day, basically. But a new path got forged out of that. That was a hard path for him, but it led to something that is incredible. And now he's like speaking to kids all over the country, and he's like literally changing lives. And it's to see that and to be able to document it and to make a film about it, dude, it was amazing. And that's something that I'll always, always, always be very thankful that he wanted me to tell that story.
Yeah, absolutely. And recently, or a couple months ago, you did the first screening of the film, and it went really well. And I wish I could have been there, but I started a new job recently. So
Yeah.
tell me how that went. What was the first screening like?
Well, we did not know what to expect. Um, we had planned a screening at this at my home church in Ohio, and we just didn't know what to expect. We didn't know how many people were going to show up. Um, to me, I was like, I think the Facebook event showed like 100 something people, interested, not
Mhm.
even like marked going. And so I was like, man, if only like 70 people show up, that'll be a win. Like that'll be great. And we had everybody who's in the film was coming, so we had planned this like panel discussion. Um, and what ended up happening was over 500 people from the community came out, and some people who have no idea who film is.
Can you recite that sentence you
And
cut out?
yeah, sorry.
Sorry.
So I was just saying, over 500 people from the community came out to see the film, and a lot of these people were people who didn't even know who I was, didn't know who anybody in the film was, and the reason was because we were promoted by like the local news stations. They heard about what we were doing, and the bigger one in the area reached out to me and they said, we want to do a whole feature just on your film and what you're doing and about your premiere and help you plug it, basically. And so the whole community knew about it, to where like the day of the screening, early in the day, we were out to lunch and people were coming up to me who I've never seen, and they're like, hey, I'm really excited about your film, like I can't wait to see it. And for me, I've never had anything like that happen. Just like being approached by a stranger and told like, hey, I'm excited about your film. And I was just like, oh, like this like gratitude just like poured over me, that I was just like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. I'm living my calling right now. And that night, people were in the parking lot. Like the parking lot was full of cars of people just waiting for the doors to open. And the place was packed out with over 500. And the film it was received super well, got a standing ovation at the end. There were moments in the film where you could hear people like audibly responding to it, like crying, and just like you could just hear the investment that people were having in the story. And those are the kind of moments where I know we did it the right way, when people are invested in it to a point where you can hear them responding to it like audibly.
Hmm.
And it got a standing ovation and a ton of people afterward. We ended up raising about $5,000 toward the festival distribution, which is why we're being considered for 32 festivals now. Um, and that process is going to last until like next year, because we're going to do another wave in the fall. But man, it was incredible. It was amazing.
Dude, that's
And I
so.
wish you could have been there.
Yeah, I
The
know.
whole
I'm
night
so
I was
mad.
like, the whole night I was wishing so badly that you could have seen it like with your eyes, because it was a dream. It was an absolute dream.
Yeah, just hearing you talk about it, I called Nate like right after it was over. I was like, "Please tell me about it. Please tell me about it," because I was so
Yeah.
eager. And that whole day I was at work, I was like, "Man, I could be at a screening right now for the film that I shot." Um,
Yeah,
but
dude,
dude, like,
it was honestly one of the best nights of my life.
so you're not making it any better. But
We'll have to try to do another.
yeah, totally. But so besides Marcus, Nate, I don't think he just picked a random location. Like, really, we could have done this anywhere, but Ohio especially has struggled with drug addictions and opioids. And can you talk about that, because you also grew up there?
Yeah, so I grew up in a town called Levittsburg, Ohio. It's right outside like Warren and Youngstown, and that area, I saw it growing up, a dependency on drugs in the community, and it sort of got worse as I left, and I watched it from a distance, and it ended up to be, before we produced the film, I don't know where it is right now, but before we produced the film, Ohio was like the second or third most affected by the opioid epidemic, and by that I mean the rate of overdose, because it's evolved from just heroin and opioids to like fentanyl, which is like way more powerful than even heroin, and the overdose rate has like skyrocketed because of that.
Hmm.
um, and that state is very close to my heart, so that's been an issue for me that's very personal. So when we had this opportunity to tell the story, uh, it was just very important for me that I got to do this, and it was cool to have you be a part of it, Trevor, because you were kind of, I mean, you can talk about this a little bit, but I know you were kind of in the camp of, I didn't even know this was as big of an issue as it is.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, as soon as Nate called me to do it, I mean, I was already on board. Like, I love Nate's work. I trust him. He's a good friend. But the project held even more weight when you told me pretty much what you just said. And I was like,
Yeah.
I didn't even know this was a thing. And
Right.
that just blew me away. I was like, this is a story I need to tell because, you know, I feel like most of the things that I make with my filmmaking are fun and goofy, and that's all great. And I'm not going to stop doing that. But
Yeah.
I've always wanted to make more films that had more meaning to them and that could, you know, change, change some people. Like I truly
Definitely.
feel like people can watch this and be informed. And also for everyone listening, this is not a doom and gloom kind of documentary. I think the name
No.
also is a metaphor for the film. Yeah, it's gonna be, you might cry in the film, but we hope that you, after you watch it, you go away feeling better, knowing that there's hope in the world and that
Yeah.
there's always a silver lining. Like for Marcus, um, if you guys have seen Friday Night Lights, I compare him to Booby Miles. If you've seen that, have you seen that movie, Nate?
I haven't actually.
Okay, well, there's a heart crushing scene where so this kid that his name's Booby Miles, and he was like I can't remember what position he played, but he was like the star player of the football team in his high school. He was gonna, like, every college wanted him and everything, and then he like broke his ACL or something. I can't remember, and it's been a while since I've seen it. And there's a scene where he's just sitting in the car and he just starts crying. He's like, "All I've ever known is football. What am I supposed to do right
Mm.
now?" And
Yeah.
that was Marcus. Like, he genuinely didn't know what he wanted to do. And I feel like even
Definitely.
if you're not an athlete and if you don't care about sports, you can relate to this story. Like, there's so many times people have um, almost put their entire life's work into something and then just had it taken away and they feel like they can't do anything. But we want to show you this film to show, like, there's always something that you can do. Like, go get help, go,
Yeah.
go just ask somebody, like, can you help me do this, or reach out.
Well, so
Mm.
I just wanted to interject.
Yeah,
That
go
was
ahead.
the main. That was like the main drive behind making the film in the first place.
Hmm.
Because when you go to like Netflix or one of those streaming services, you can easily find a lot of documentaries that are about drugs,
Hmm.
but so many of them are focused solely on the death and the bondage of addiction. And for me, we need to make something that serves two purposes. And there's two purposes that Death to Life serves. One is that people who are in addiction can watch something and be reminded that it doesn't have to be a death sentence and that
Hmm.
there is hope for a future. As long as there's breath in your lungs, there's hope for a future. And then the second purpose was for the general public to kind of be educated on uh, the individuals behind the statistics of addiction and to really connect with these personal stories and start to rethink about, you know, the homeless guy that they see on the street who's begging for money, and the first instinct is to be like, oh well, they're just gonna, if I give them money, they're just gonna use it to buy drugs. And it's the purpose of this film is to kind of get people to kind of rethink people and rethink an addict, and kind of do away with that word and see an addict as a person with value.
Hmm.
Um, and so I think the film serves those purposes very well. And I'm really excited to show the world at some point.
Yeah. And I remember when I went to help you film that, we went to your church and you led worship there. And after we left, you told me about your pastor saying that there was a former meth addict in the audience or in the
Yeah,
congregation. And that kind of just made me think, like, you know, if we all treated addicts the way a lot of people do, that guy, like, wouldn't be sitting there. And so would Marcus. Like, there's so many people that had faith in him. Like,
yeah,
I don't want to give too much away in the story, but um, like, his wife Chelsea leaves him. He loses his daughter. He spends his first Father's Day alone, and he's like at the lowest low in his life. And he starts getting he goes to rehab, and it's just a beautiful like comeback story that everyone can relate to.
Yeah. Yeah, and it tells the story of the work that goes into recovery too.
Yeah, it's not a
That
magic.
he that
It's not like
yeah,
a magic thing that
that
happens.
Marcus had like a why.
Can you say that again? You cut off.
I was just saying that Marcus had a why, that like
Mm-hmm.
this is why I'm doing this, and a daily reminder of why he was in recovery, and that sort of put the stepping stones in front of him to keep moving forward to where he is now every day.
Mm-hmm. And another thing that you
So
talked to
it's
me
really,
about is
yeah,
the Narcan issue, and that was a huge
yeah,
driving point of the film too. Do you want to talk about that?
yeah. That was something that I was thinking about a lot when I first started filming, and it didn't. I don't think it really ended up having as much of a focus in the finished film as it was when we started talking about it. But it still is I think it's a jumping off point. The film is into this discussion about Narcan.
Mm-hmm.
So for those of you who don't know what Narcan is, it is a uh, drug that paramedics can use um, to essentially revive someone who has overdosed. And Kirsty, for example, who is in our documentary, we tell her story. She has overdosed, I think, 8 times maybe, and been given Narcan 8 times. Um, and there are some states, Ohio has been one of those who has had this discussion. I think they've ended up on the right side of this, but some states have had this discussion of basically limiting the number of times that you'll be revived from an overdose. And it's like a 3-strike system. If you overdose 3 times, on the 4th time, we're going to let you die because you didn't learn your lesson. And it totally is something that completely disregards people's value as human beings, and it completely dismisses their sickness as an addict. And it's just like, well, you didn't make the right choice, so you're dead. Even though we could help you, even though we could save your life a 4th time, we're just not going to. And it's just such a dehumanizing discussion to even have. And so that was something that I wanted us to talk about when we made the film. And again, I don't think it really ended up taking a central point in the film, but it is kind of a springing off point to start that discussion. And I think that it serves the purpose of seeing the humanity behind the crisis. And I think that without even having to talk about Narcan, it probably makes people think a little bit differently about that conversation.
Absolutely. And I remember sitting there when we were interviewing Kirsty, and she said that, and um, when she said the line like, "If there was only 3 strikes, I wouldn't be here talking to you right now," and that just kind of
Yep.
blew me away. Like, what if what if we just interviewed Marcus and your pastor and that was it for the film? What if there was no
Yeah.
Kirsty? Like, I don't think the film would have
And
been the
that,
same. Also.
yeah, it wouldn't have been. And that's that's just another like example that kind of serves the point of why we shouldn't be having that conversation,
Mm-hmm.
because Kirsty is now in recovery and she's doing really well, and she's like rebuilding her life right now. And if that 3-strike system wasn't in place, she would not have that opportunity. um, she would be gone. And and that's something that it's like such a waste to let that happen, because now she is contributing to society and she's doing really well, and she's helping her family, and she just recently got a house, and she's just building this life for herself, and it's wonderful to see. And if the 3-strike system wasn't in place, that wouldn't have ever happened.
Absolutely. And so Nate, we're coming up on an hour. I kind of want to end on a happier note. But
Yes.
to end that, like, um, do you think Death to Life will be able to be available to the public anytime soon?
It depends on how you would so we are in festival distribution right now. And what that means is basically we can't release it to the public right now,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of these festivals, if it's been released, they will not even consider it. So what's going to happen is as we hopefully get accepted to film festivals and get selected, they'll be showing the film at their film festival, which is usually in like movie theaters and stuff like that. So if you want to stay up to date with that, follow my social media pages. It's Nate Powers on Facebook and natepowers.tv on Instagram. And anytime we get accepted to a festival, I'm going to be posting about that, where the festival is and what it's happening, and they'll be showing the film. So it's possible that it's going to be showing throughout later this fall, or even as early as summer into the fall. And then in the fall, we're going to do another wave of film festivals that are going to go into spring of next year. Once that's all done, after spring of next year, we'll be looking at distribution for the film, whether that means getting a distribution deal or ending up on a streaming site, or us just like self-distributing and putting it out online somewhere. I don't know what that's going to look like right now, but it will happen as early as spring of next year, but it could be a little bit later. It's hard to like answer that stuff because it's like we just don't really know. It's like it's on a track right now, and we're just seeing where it goes before we make those big decisions.
And there's also a soundtrack too, right?
Yeah, well, so not a soundtrack, but a companion album.
Yes.
Which is actually right here. I just happen to have these under my desk. We have a Death to Life companion album that has like. So I work a lot in the music industry, so I'm friends, like very close friends with a lot of really, really talented music artists. And so I reached out to a few of them and I just said, hey, I made this documentary, and I told them about it. And I'm like, I'm thinking about doing a companion album that people can listen to and just have an encouraging experience from beginning to end. So it's got 9 songs on it that are all centered around this concept of positivity and like investing into the listener with messages like "You Matter" and like some of the song titles. "Take a Deep Breath" by Clark Beckham, where it's featuring Marcus. We have a soundbite from Marcus where he's saying basically, as long as you have breath in your lungs, there's hope. And Clark like composed like a whole song around that soundbite, and it's really good. We have like "The Wild" by Colin Matchek. The chorus of that song says, "I won't let the wild get the best of me." "Less is More" by Clark Beckham. "Anchors" by Ernst Lee Etienne. "You Notice Me" by Jessica Height. "Try Again," that's a really good one, by Colin Matchek. "You Love Me Again" by Bobby Alexandre. "Better" by Jessica Height, and then "No More Shadow" by Ernst Lee Etienne. And "No More Shadow" I think is one of my favorite songs on the album, because it's the chorus of that one. It says, "There's no more," it's something like, "There's no more shadow in the love that moves the darkness." And it's such a like deep poetic chorus, but it says so much about like loving the people around you and what that does to people and what that does to society. And so we ended the album on that because it just like ties the whole thing together. So there's that.
Can anybody buy that? Did you hear me?
No, I didn't hear you say that again.
Oh, can anybody buy that right now?
Yes. And I believe the website is Nate Powers. Let me make sure that this is right. natepowers.tv/death to life. Let's see if that goes to the store. It does. So natepowers.tv/death to life. It goes to an online store where you can order the album. And I have this box of albums. I have actually 3 of these left from our last print, and they're just kind of sitting here, and as people order them, we ship them out. So if you want it, go to natepowers.tv/death to life, and I'll mail it to you.
Yes, when I go into post, I'll put that below. You guys will definitely see that.
Yeah.
natepowers.tv/death to life. But Nate, thank you so much for talking about that. I kind of wanted to end on like what's next for Nate Powers. Like, what do you want to do
Ooh.
like after this quarantine, maybe even during this. And then I'd like to ask you a few more questions.
Yeah, so there's so many things that are like brewing right now that I've been talking to people about that I can't really act on until all of society sort of returns to some level of normalcy. So a couple things. My friend Clark Beckham, who was, if you don't know who he was runner up on American Idol a few seasons ago, and he now tours every year, and he's getting to be a very successful music artist. And him and I shot a documentary in New York City 2 days before it went into a state of emergency, uh,
Man.
which is kind of weird. It was weird to leave New York City and then like a week later, it was like everything was so different. But we shot this documentary there because he had an opportunity to sing the national anthem at Madison Square Garden, which was crazy. And so I went with him and we documented that whole thing. And so we have this like little mini doc that's probably going to be 5 to 10 minutes long that we are putting together. But there's some things like Madison Square Garden was providing us with the video of him singing, but 2 days after we were there, they went under state of emergency, and the people who worked at Madison Square Garden are no longer working. And so it's
Dang.
sort of in limbo right now. There's just some things that we're just like kind of waiting to happen. So some of that probably won't happen until everything kind of goes back to normal. There's a couple of other music artists that I'm talking to right now about some music videos with, and some big ones that I'm really excited about. Me and Josh are working through a concept on a feature length like narrative film that
Ooh.
we're super excited about. It's actually Josh's idea, and he told me about it, and I was like, we got to make that. And I'm so gung ho about it. So we're in that process right now, and I have no idea what that will look like, but hopefully someday it'll look like something.
Absolutely. Dude,
But
that's
yeah,
cool.
man, what's next for me is just to keep doing what I'm doing and keep creating and keep working, and hopefully things will go back to normal soon, and I'll be able to do some big projects again that I'm really excited about.
Yeah, Chase said, let us know if you need PA help.
Absolutely,
Let's see.
dude,
Oh,
for sure.
I didn't see this comment earlier, or somebody commented. It's a David Coercion. Says, we love you, Nate. Miss you,
Oh,
friend.
Kirsten.
Yeah.
Oh, Dave. Okay, can I say something about Dave?
Yeah, I don't know if he's watching anymore. He may have commented that forever ago.
That's okay if he's not, but I just want to mention him.
Yeah, go ahead.
When talking about like mentors, when I was like 10 or 11 years old, he was a guy from our church who worked in our like children's ministry, and he saw that like passion in me at 10 or 11 years old, and like encouraged me to just like make stuff. And him and I made like all kinds of little like skit videos together for the church, and he was somebody who was always super excited and like knew that there was a trajectory that I was on. And now I love hearing about Dave keeping up with the stuff that I'm doing, because he's awesome. uh
That's awesome,
yeah,
dude.
Dave's the best.
And then
Crazy
my
Dave is what I call him.
really, and
Yeah.
let's see. Oh yeah, my dad commented and said, self-employment is always a gamble, but the rewards are immeasurable if you stick with it. I guess
Big
he
time.
I guess he commented that whenever you were talking about your self-employment. And thank you for the bits. I think that's what that is.
Yeah.
Penny Paxius.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. That the reward, it's so rewarding. It's so risky, but then when you find success in it, it's incredible to be able to say that you built it, and like you didn't depend on anybody for it.
Mm-hmm.
Not to like put down anybody working a job, but for me personally, I'm like, this is like, I did this. I built this. I love it.
Yeah, and Nate's a really good friend of mine. Like anytime I had a film question, especially when I was back in Cleveland, I always texted Nate like, "Hey, how do you do this? How do you do that?" And it was I love having Nate as a friend, man. I still love calling him every now and then just to catch up, and It's great to see what you're doing, man. Like, that was another reason I wanted to do this show, is like catch up with some of my creative friends that had an interesting story like you.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, but Nate Powers, everybody, let's give him a round of applause.
Yay! And let me just say, super proud of you and all the stuff that you're doing.
Thanks, man.
I've seen I can see the progress that you've made as a filmmaker in the craft, and it's so cool to watch, dude. You're super talented.
Dude, thank you. It means a lot.
Future.
Thanks, man.
Thanks,
And
man.
all right, now we're gonna talk about Vine. And Nate used to be a.
Oh no!
I love embarrassing him with that.
I love it, and I hate it.
We got some bits. Shout out to Savannah Powers, because that's Nate's wife, and she's awesome.
Oh, my baby.
Dude, how's Savannah doing?
She's good. She's downstairs right now, chilling.
Go get her.
Savannah! Oh, sorry, that was really loud.
You didn't peek, so that's okay.
Savannah! She might be dead. Right
Oh
now,
no, she's
actually.
never coming.
Yeah, I think she died. I probably should go search for the
Savannah.
body right now. I think it's downstairs somewhere.
Yeah, you should go do that. Look out the window first.
It's outside, and I see nothing because there's a bright light right in front of my face right here.
I will say you probably have one of the best sets I'll ever have from a guest. Also, looks like you're in a Disney Channel sitcom.
Hey, I'm Nate, and this is the Disney Channel. Do, 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 do. Whack.
How would you do that if you were on Disney Channel? Would you like draw it and then do the arm crossing thing, or would you just be like?
I would, if it was me, I would say, I'm Nate, and this is the Disney Channel, and then I would go,
Higgins.
this is my dog Higgins.
Aw, cute puppers.
Boop. I'm Higgins, and this is the Disney Channel. Do, 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 do.
I love that dog. Hey, Higgins. The derpiest dog to ever exist.
He is super duper derpy.
Penny, thank you for the bits. Says Savannah sent me here. Thank you, Savannah.
Ooh. Who did?
It says Penny. I think it says it's Paxious.
What are bits?
I think it's kind of like giving me some money. I'm not sure, but it's like
Ooh.
saying like, "Hey,
Penny,
keep up
thanks
the work."
for the pennies.
The pennies, because I'll probably make 3 cents off of that.
Ooh, 3 cents.
So I don't want to get
If you
into.
get a lot more of those, you'll have 6 cents.
And then the 7th sense. But
$1. And then you can go to Dollar Tree and buy a piece of candy.
I can, but not right now because we're in lockdown.
Oh yeah, that's right.
But oh well. When's Savannah coming? Is she dead?
Oh, there she is. She said she's not going to be in it because she looks like.
He said he was coming to show love and support to y'all.
Who did?
My friend Jay.
Oh,
on
thanks,
Instagram.
Jay, from
Thanks, Jay.
Instagram. Thanks for them bits.
He's a photographer.
Real
Oh, he's a
appreciate it.
photographer.
Oh shoot,
Loves it.
got a photographer here.
Savannah
Savannah, I
doesn't
miss
want to be
you.
on your show, though.
I
Trevor
look
said he misses you.
crap. I don't want this to be on the internet forever.
It's
no.
on. It's on the internet.
No,
I mean, your voice is on the internet forever.
Yeah, true. Your voice is on for eternity, but we can't see you, so.
Well, cool. All right, well, I'm gonna end this. Nate Powers, everyone.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me on the Portable Trevor show.
Yeah, dude. Jason,
The
what is
Tonight
up?
Show starring Portable Trevor. What's up, Jason?
And Jawish.
And Jawish.
I need to have Josh on the show. He's got a lot of funny stories.
I should be on the show.
Yeah.
We should have done it instead of Nate. You should have said Nate was going to be on, so like people would show up, and then just.
They come.
Oh,
Be like,
man.
wait,
They come for Nate, but they stay for Jawish.
I love it.
Cool. All right,
love
Nate, do
it.
you have anything else you want to say before we end?
Subscribe. Like and
Yes.
subscribe.
Yes, subscribe to my Twitch channel and my YouTube. But more importantly, you should follow Nathan. Go to natepowers.tv/death to life if you want to get the companion album. I've still not heard
Yes.
it. Can you mail that to me, by the way?
Bro, literally your copy is on the desk right now, and I've got a sticky note on it that says Trevor. So
What?
it's yours. I just need to see you so I can give it to you. Or I guess I should just mail it. 'Cause
You can.
I don't know.
Yeah, whatever you
I'll
want,
just
man.
mail it to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, bye, everybody. Thank you so much for stopping by.